What's up, y'all? Welcome to your safe space. I'm your host, RJ, and this is the Alive I Guess podcast. If you're new here, welcome. I appreciate you for joining. And if you've been here, welcome back. I appreciate you as always. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads at Alive I Guess podcast for all inquiries, feedback, and not, I say this with love, email aliveiguesspodcast@gmail.com. So you're probably wondering why you don't have to email that for I say this with love. That's because I've created a whole new anonymous form, and the feedback link is tinyurl.com/AIGP advice. I won't be able to see emails, IP addresses, anything. So it's completely anonymous. I thought this would be better so you could say everything that you need to say and be completely worry-free that I know who you are. Please do not send your I Say This With Love to the email address. Again, if you do, that's okay as we transition. But be sure to send it to the tiny URL link, and I will also link it in the bio. Today, we are going to be discussing sobriety, which is very near and dear to my heart personally. Before we jump into it, I just want to say I'm not trying to preach to y'all about going sober. This is to share my story with anyone out there who needs to hear it, for anyone who's considering going sober, for anyone who knows somebody who might need to go sober or that you want to support in sobriety, whichever way you feel it's applicable to you. I'm just here to offer my story, share some advice, share some tips and resources that I've learned over the years within my sobriety. So please go into it with that ear and that in mind, that this is all to help. If you go sober, if you don't, that's your business. Because sobriety isn't just a decision, it's a lifestyle change. And it's pretty big. But before we get into that, you already know we got to do some gratitude, got to set the tone. If you're new here, every episode I like to start off with some gratitude just to get the environment and the space right before we dive into potentially heavy topics so that we can have an open heart, open mind, and just be in good energy before we jump into the conversation. Today, I am grateful for my sobriety. My life has completely changed since I got sober, and I know life wouldn't be where it is today without it. We'll touch on it more, but my sobriety literally saved my life, and I am forever appreciative of that. And if you're listening, say something out loud or in your head that you're grateful for today. It doesn't have to be big or significant, but just one thing that you're grateful for. And if you're watching, go ahead and drop something in the comments that you're grateful for today. All right, let's get into it, because sobriety be happening. Okay, before we can touch on my life as a sober individual, I think it's important that we start from the beginning. So, when was I introduced to alcohol from a consumption standpoint? Well, to start, my parents were on different sides of the spectrum of drinking. My mom is a drinker, my dad is not. I touched on this before, but being a child who had split custody between parents, I grew up in two different households. I would see one parent who would drink and one parent who never drank. I don't really blame any sort of exposure on my environment. I believe you are born with this trait of an addiction of sorts or alcoholism that can be triggered by your environment, but the alcoholic in me was there whether I saw it or not. I never had the urge to drink when I was a child until I got to that tender age of 13. And I was going through some things, 12, 13, middle school. That was kind of the time where I first became depressed. I was going through something in terms of like my parents. And so I decided I was going to drink. You know, that's the age you rebel and act up and you test your autonomy. And this was around the time where Twitter was out, and I tweeted something about drinking, and somehow it got back to my mom, and I got in trouble for it, and it was like this whole thing, and then it added this layer of guilt and embarrassment. But the first time I drank, I got drunk. very drunk. And, that level of drunk would usually maybe deter a kid from drinking again. And so it worked. So 13 till about 14, 15, I was on the straight and narrow, got really good grades in school, didn't party, didn't do anything. I'm now in high school, I'm living with my mom. Things are going well. Then I break my foot, sophomore year, can't play basketball, and I start to tank a little bit. I don't start drinking at this point, but I do start smoking. Grades start to slide. I have nothing to lose. I can't play, so I'm not as committed as I once was. This is sophomore year when all of my friends who were seniors at the time and used to look out for me and like keep me on the straight path, they were gone. And so I was just wilding in my cast. I was chilling. I got it together, got my grades back up. Things just got better. It improved. My foot healed. I got back to playing. Still wasn't drinking. And then my junior year going into my senior year that summer, I got a scholarship. And so I'm like, okay, well, I got to stop smoking. Let's pivot to drinking, right? Because that makes sense when you are 16, 17. So that is where the drinking really starts. I drank a lot my senior year of high school. There were times where I was drinking and driving. People had to drive me home. I have a friend in particular from high school who used to be with me like all the time and would take care of me when I was drinking or drive me around. And I've apologized to them because that was not the position that I should have put them in, even though they said it's fine. In sobriety, you do a lot of reflecting and repairing and owning things that you did in your time with drinking. But yeah, just drank through senior year, drank through college. Couldn't drink too much in college, like not too often because I'm playing basketball. I'm traveling 4 out of 7 days a week. I got practice every day. I got class. I got workout. I got all these things. But when I could, I was drinking. I was surrounded by people who, of course, drank as well. We are all college kids. We all want to drink. We all want to party. So it was like a perfect storm. I don't understand at this point that I do have an alcohol problem because I'm chalking it up to being 20 something in college, and it's not interfering with my life until one incident that I will touch on in more detail later. But essentially, I got injured when I was drinking outside of basketball. And my coach told me that if I didn't get my drinking under control, that I would be kicked off the team. Lucky for me, she couldn't do that because it was against the rules. So I was like, So that really didn't stop anything. I just stayed away from sharp objects when I was drinking. But graduated college, went through the whole identity crisis. What am I going to do? Get a job. And I was literally going to work, coming home, drinking, going to sleep until I got to the weekend. Then I was partying, going to sleep, started back the week over with the same cycle. So I was just drinking. It was the only tool in my toolbox. Fast forward to about 2018, and I'm noticing emotional shifts, but I'm not aware that I'm becoming depressed. Depression wasn't something that was really talked about in either sides of my families, in either one of my houses. So I didn't really have an awareness to what it was. I'm also drinking a lot and it's really spiking my anxiety. So I'm dealing with that as well. So I have these negative emotions coming up. I have this anxious feeling that's coming up. I don't know what this is, but I know when I feel things or feel any sort of abnormal emotion, whether that be in a positive direction or a negative, I drink. And so I drank and I was drinking a lot. There was one particular weekend, it was towards Christmas time of 2018, where I went through, I don't know how to quantify it, but it was like a the Kirkland Costco size bottle of liquor, the big ass bottle, real big, like two, not the average size, like the big one. I went through a full one of those of vodka in one weekend. Mind you, this was not a weekend I was partying. I was doing like family events in my house, and I ran through the whole bottle by myself. So I'm like, that's different. And then through the next couple weeks, more emotional things come up. There was a situation where I self-harmed myself. And I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't understand what that was. This is new. I don't know what this is, but let me call somebody. Also important to note at this point, I also am taking Xanax at this time on top of the drinking, and tolerance goes up. Got to increase the amount of pills or alcohol that you consume. That's a very dangerous mixture. After the weekend that I self-harmed myself, I think I called like an advice nurse. And I was like, hey, this happened over the weekend. I don't really know what's going on, but help me. Talk to them. They passed me to a psychiatrist. I let them know that I was self-harming. They asked if I was drinking. I was like, yeah. They asked if I'm taking anything else. I let them know I was on Xanax. And I guess that is what made their alarms go up, not the self-harming. But because I said that, they transferred me over to the alcohol and substance dependency department. And I'm like, why? Like, why y'all got me in here? So I'm sitting in this office, and the doctor at the time is like, if you don't stop drinking, you're gonna die. Well, no shit. But I'm here because I'm hurting myself, and this is new. And you sitting here trying to berate me and telling me I need to come back tomorrow, girl, you'll never see me again. I don't care. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's the last thing you want to hear when you're emotionally going through things, you don't understand what's happening, and then you got this stranger on your ass telling you things that you know. Like, cool. And then this woman walks in the room. I'm sitting in there with my wife and the two doctors, and then another woman comes in the room. And she's like, hi, how are you doing? I'm blank. I hear you're having some trouble and you're looking for like help with your situation. And I was like, yes, finally somebody is listening. Goddamn. And she's like, I have a book that has a lot of skills in it, and I have it in my office and I can give it to you, but I need you to bring it back tomorrow. And when she said that, I'm like, I see what you're doing. Like, I see what's going on here. She's like, you promise you'll bring it back? And I'm like, okay, like I got you. Like, I'll be back. This is the woman who winds up being my lifeline, my counselor, my therapist. This is who I've been with and who has taught me a lot of the things and tools that I know today. This is the same person. And from there, I entered alcohol dependency programs. I've been in AA meetings. I've been in different groups. I've been in outpatient programs. I've spent a lot of time learning about alcoholism and learning about sobriety and learning about the different things that come up. This particular time, I did not keep my sobriety because I'm thinking I need to do it for someone else. I do like 30 days and it's back to normal. Drinking picks back up. In my head, I start making more sense of my drinking. Like, it's not that bad because it's like it's only on the weekends and I don't drink during the week. And, start rationalizing. And then I hit another wave of depression a couple years or like a year later. And one of the requirements for the group was I couldn't drink. So I stopped drinking, but just because they asked me to. So I'm like, sure, I guess. The last time that I went through this group was in 2020, which was the last time I actually drank. And so this is where we get to the real incident that actually made me stop drinking. 2020, top of the year. I'm just enjoying life. My birthday's in February. I'm looking forward to the beginning of a new year for me in terms of my age. And then the country shuts down because of COVID. At the time, I'm feeling some emotional things come up again. This time I'm aware it's depression because of my previous experience in these groups that I just touched on. But it's cool. Like, I did the therapy. I know how to handle it. At least I think. At the time, my wife is a teacher and she lost one of her students the week we shut down for the pandemic. It's scary times. We don't know what's happening. And then this situation happens where she loses one of her students. It gets really heavy in the house. I'm dealing with things emotionally and we're isolated. And I don't know what is happening in the world. So I'm trying to show up for her, trying to figure out what's what. Nobody really knows what's going on. And I'm at the house, so I'm drinking. The week goes through and we get to March 22nd. And all day I'm home. I'm at the house, but I'm drinking all day, like slowly. I am calling my friends because at that time I was a drunk texter caller to my friends back in that day, and so I was FaceTiming, and I'm like, dang, I really want to come see y'all, but my wife's not having that because we don't know what COVID is and all the things. She don't want me around people. She needs me there, so I stay home, and then she goes to sleep early. So I'm like, in my drunk mind, like, now's my time. So I leave and I drive to my friend's house, who the drive is probably like 40 minutes away. I've been drinking all day and my wife does not left. So I text her. I was like, hey, I'm going for a drive. I'll be back later. I'm not going to be around anybody because, COVID, which is the manipulation and things that kind of happen in drinking. But anyway, go to my friends. We're drinking more. And this is a friend who is like, if you're drinking, you can't go home, which, thank you. That's the way friends should be. You should not let somebody you love drive home if they've been drinking. But that doesn't work because I got to get home. And I told my wife that I'm just out on a drive. And it already took me 40 minutes to get here. It's another 40 minutes to get back. And I've been here for a few hours. So by the end of the night, they're like, you got to stay here. And I'm like, I can't stay here. I got to go. And they're like, well, that doesn't really work. I'll be right back. Went to their room. And that's when I made my great escape and I left. I get in the car. I'm driving the route in which I think is the route to get home. And I'm in the car maybe like 30 seconds. And I call my wife back because at this point she called me and she's like, where are you? And I'm like, my bad. Like, my phone was on silence. I'm almost home. I'll see you in a minute. I hang up and then I hear a crash. I don't feel anything. I don't see anything. I just hear it. And I'm like, what happened? Kind of come to, I realize I hit a parked car, thankfully. My door's pinned, can't get out. The police show up. They ask me questions about what happened. I'm trying to lie because obviously I've been drinking and I'm thinking I'm aware of the situation of where I am. And essentially, I wasn't on the route that I thought I was. And my lies kind of like caught up to the story. I was like, yeah, like someone like came and sideswiped me, and he's like, they were coming this like the opposite direction. I was like, yeah. He's like, this is a one-way street. And I kind of like looked up at my environment and I'm like, oh, fuck. Because I knew like there was no getting out of it. It's also important to note that when I was driving down from my house to my friend's house, I had a lot of negative thoughts just kind of playing in my head. I remember particularly saying that I don't really care what happens to me, which is wild to even think about, but that just goes to show you like how hand in hand mental illness and like heavy drinking go into each other, because it was so unprompted. I was in the car by myself and nothing had really happened, but when you're in that space and then when you're drinking, that is just a terrible combination. And so fast forward to now, I'm getting arrested. I'm sitting in the holding cell And before I even get to the cell, it's COVID. So I can't go to the main jail because of the different protocols and things like that. So I go to like the office of the police. I don't know. It wasn't the main jail. It was like a holding cell in the front of the jail. And all the officers were black women, except for the one who arrested me. And they were like, baby, what'd you do? What are you doing here? Like, what happened? I was like, I was drinking and I was drinking and driving. They were just like, oh, and they're like, it's gonna be okay. I'm really grateful nobody was injured. I got like a concussion, but for the most part, I wasn't injured. And then I was sitting in the cell and I'm like, I gotta call my wife. So call my wife, let her know what happened. She's obviously upset. Then I call my mom, let her know what happened. And then I gotta sit here for 5 hours. Mind you, it's like 3 in the morning. I'm sitting there just kind of like taking it all in. And I remember literally sitting there and having this internal thought because it's somebody else in there at the time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done drinking. I'm done. This is it. It's not worth it. I don't want to play. I don't want to play. That was a little too close. That was as close as you could get to a tragedy without it being tragic. And the thing is, if I would have took the route that I was supposed to take to get back home, within like a minute or two, I would have been on the freeway. But because I was preoccupied and I was drunk and I was on the phone with my wife, I missed my turn. And I got onto a one-way street. Like there was no oncoming traffic. I wasn't on a highway. I just understood in that moment, all right, you've been playing with fire. This is your last warning. The next one, you gonna die. And I said, all right, I'm done. So the last time I drank was around like 2 a.m. on March 23rd, 2020. And that is literally a day that like I will never forget. I have my sobriety date tattooed right here. And around it, it says serenity, courage, and wisdom, which is the serenity prayer, which is associated with Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps and things like that. Because I understood what kind of lesson I was being taught. I didn't need to learn it again. I knew that was it. And from there, that starts my sobriety journey. So there's a few different points to touch on in terms of the sobriety journey. We have the aspect of rebuilding trust with my wife, with my family, with myself, unlearning and healing the shame and the guilt associated with the times of drinking. We have the financial obligations that came with the DUI. Long story short, after insurance, restitution, fees, lawyer, I think it was like 18,000, something crazy. Mind you, I'm not balling like that at the time. Like I'm got a job, I'm making money, but not money like that. So that was woo, that was a blow. On top of not having my license for a year, on top of being on probation, what do they call it? Unofficial probation up until last year this time. So I've been off probation for about a year, on top of technically having to do community service and go to jail. But thank my lucky stars, because it was COVID, they just waived that community service. I had to go to classes for weeks, and that costs money. There's just a lot of money associated with getting a DUI, but it still is a lot less than the cost of your life or your freedom because you are drinking and driving with someone. So I will take it. If that's all it costs for me to learn this lesson, I'll take that every day of the week. So the financial, you have to learn what life is like without the alcohol. And not only you, but the people around you, especially when you are building relationships based on drinking, reestablishing what that looks like and what your relationships are actually standing on from a foundational point of view. And then finally, you really got to look at your commitment to yourself and to your sobriety when those triggers come up, because they do come up. As much as I'd like to say I don't experience it even nearly 6 years later, sometimes they come up. And when they do, I'm just like, girl, what you doing here? Craving, go away, you know? But that wasn't always the case. Sometimes I folded. Wait, no, I didn't fold. I almost folded, but I never folded. Since March 23rd, 2020, not a drop, not a drip, not a whiff, not a shot, not nothing. No alcohol has entered my body, and no alcohol ever will enter my body again. Choosing sobriety, and I do mean choosing sobriety because it is a decision that I made to be sober for myself, was the best decision that I ever made in my life. What made it stick for me, especially this time, was not doing it for anyone else besides me. The last ones were never for me. It was to give people some leeway so they could get off my back about drinking. But I always knew in my mind I was going back to drinking in those first couple of attempts of getting sober. But this one, this is for RJ, which is why I got the tattoo on my first sobriety date, because I knew the first year is the hardest, they say. And if I could survive that, this is a lifelong journey, and I am committed to my sobriety for the rest of my life, however long that is. Before, yeah, of course I wanted to be sober. I wanted to be, well, I didn't necessarily want to be sober. I wanted to behave better in my drinking so that I wasn't a problem. I never wanted to be sober. I can't honestly say I wanted to be sober when I got sober this time. I just didn't want my life to keep crumbling, and it felt like drinking was at the center of all my problems. That and mental health issues, but hand in hand, it was those two. Because when I was depressed, I was drinking. If I got happy, I was drinking. Like, drinking was always there, no matter if things were good, bad, or indifferent. So I knew I needed to cut drinking altogether. I saw what could happen with drinking. I saw how I could think with drinking, and I didn't want that to be my life. After the DUI, I had to enroll back into those courses and those classes and groups that I was in before. Fun fact, the first group I was in back in 2018, 2019, that was the group where that woman told me I should start a podcast. So look at that. Full circle. Now look, we're sitting here on the podcast talking about my sobriety. Who would have thought? But I had to go back into those groups because as I am exiting the jail, going home, trying to figure out where my car is, all these things, first person I got to call is my therapist, because like, girl, it happened. And we knew it was going to happen. And she's like, I think it's important that you come back to these groups. We'll talk about it. Come see me in a couple days, and then we are going to get you back in the program. But she was really like sweet and didn't make me feel as shitty as I made myself feel. But choosing sobriety, I definitely made a choice. I also wanted to choose sobriety because when you are drinking, in the amount of drinking that I was. See, my alcoholism wasn't like knocking them back every day. No. I was a functioning alcoholic. I went to work, came home, took care of bills, spent time with my family, extracurriculars. Like I was functioning. But when I was drinking, I was drinking. It's like I know I'm drunk, but I'm gonna keep going. On the weekend, I'm making up for the full week. Like, it was a problem in that regards. And to me, I thought you got to be drinking every day, depending on the alcohol, to be considered an alcoholic. But that's not the case at all. Alcoholism is literally a chemical dependency in your brain to where you have a higher craving that the average person doesn't. The average person can drink socially and be like, you know what, I'm good, I'll stop. The alcoholic will keep drinking and keep drinking and keep pushing it. And everybody has an addiction of some sorts. This is just an addiction of alcohol. And the thing about alcoholism is it's a disease. And it's the only disease in the world that gets treated with such harshness because people think it's really a choice. And it isn't. If you had cancer or something, you're not going to be sitting here making the person with cancer feel bad. Like, why do you have cancer? Why don't you just get better? Why don't you just stop having cancer? But when it comes to drinking, that's how a lot of people treat it. And I get it, the ignorance. Not a lot of people are educated on alcoholism, which of course they wouldn't teach us that because then that takes money out of their pocket, capitalism. But it's a disease and it's not treated as such, which really sucks. But that's why people like me are here to discuss these things and bring awareness to it, because I can almost guarantee you, listener or watcher, know somebody or experience yourself the issue of alcoholism. Like, you either know someone who drinks too much or you yourself drink too much. And it's more common than we realize. And so this should be something that we discuss more. But my point, my wife is at this point not really messing with me. When you're drinking and in the throes of alcoholism, let me be specific because it's not just for regular drinking, but when you are in the throes of alcoholism, you are very manipulative, you lie, you gaslight, you do a lot of things that you don't even realize you're doing because you're trying to be perceived a certain way and not make it seem like you have that much of a problem and make it seem like the other person's tripping. And at this time, that is a lot of the things that I was doing with my wife. I never cheated. I never called her out her name. I never put hands on her. But the emotional things that I was doing because of the manipulative brain that I had when I was drinking is something that I am still recovering from and still working through my guilt with, and still get triggered with to this day. It's not as bad as it was. Oh my God, the first 2, 3, 4 years, woo, rough. Like, I was beating myself up bad. But now, it gets better. You work through things. But 2020 was the year that we were supposed to get married, and I came back after getting released, and she was gone. She needed a break. She said, I'll see you in a few days. She left her ring, and I'm like, damn, I fucked up. Like, this is bad. And so we really had to start over and rebuilding trust, because a lot of trust is broken. She had to heal through things because she was gaslit in my drinking. And so she had to go back and learn to forgive herself for allowing herself to be misled. It was just a healing process that she had to do on her own for herself, and then we had to do together, because you got to own all that shit that you do when you're drinking. But I worked hard to prove to her that you can trust me. If you ever have questions about anything, you can come to me. If you ever are concerned about anything, we could talk about it. You just got to be transparent in these moments when you're repairing and building. And today, there's no concern about anything. It helped us with a lot of different aspects in our marriage and just communication and emotional tolerance and how we handle conflict. I had to build the trust up before we could move forward. Well, we wound up getting married 6 months later. So, yeah, I was working hard 2020 because life wouldn't have been worth living without her, especially after all this. So I was like, I can't lose you and drinking. No, gotta make this work. But there was also internal changes that happened with sobriety. I had to completely learn who I was without this tool. It was literally like if my emotional regulation was a toolbox, when you open that bitch, you would have saw a bottle of liquor in it and nothing else. That was the only tool that I had to get through anything, good or bad. And then you take that out. What do you do? Because now you're sober. Now you have an awareness of things coming up. Now you see and you feel what it's like to sit in discomfort, what it's like to sit in your emotions. And your first instinct is to drink and you can't. So what do? You're thinking a lot clearer. You are interacting with people differently. You're building skills to get in a place where you can handle discomfort and emotions and triggers coming up. You completely shift who you are as a person. It was something that I admittedly had a lot of help with because I was in these classes and literally getting educated on them. When you go from looking to one thing to solve everything, and then you start having different tools for different reactions and responses, that changes you completely. It changes how you think, how you operate, how you handle problems, makes your life a lot more manageable and regulated. And even though that seems great and it is great, if that's not what you're used to, that's something that is quite an adjustment, not only for you, but the people around you. So then you have to start going around people and being in spaces or not, because in early days of recovery, you should not be exposing yourself to alcohol because obviously you might cave, but you're going around these friends where y'all used to get towed back every time y'all got together. And now they're like treating you like a baby deer, like, oh my God, like, is it okay if I'm around you? This fine? And that's fantastic. That's what they should be doing if they care about you. But it's also very awkward. It's like the elephant in the room. The bottle comes out and you're just kind of sitting there and everybody looking at you like, oh, sorry. So it's just like an adjustment. Today, I don't have to say anything. People already know. People let me know for events like we got the non-alcoholic for you. People have made sober events in my honor. It's really nice to know I have the support to be sober and everybody is aware and nobody's pressuring me. That is something that you can go through in your early days of recovery. Nobody likes to feel uncomfortable. If you aren't drinking and everyone else is drinking, some people aren't going to care. Some people are going to respect it. But some people, it's going to make them uncomfortable. Why? Maybe they know they have an alcohol problem and they don't want to look at you being sober because it makes them re-examine their relationship to alcohol. So they're going to try and make you drink. They're going to be like, oh, just have one. It's not that bad. Like, you don't drink at all. Like, you can have a little. Girl, I said no. Stop asking me. They have a tool in recovery where they tell you, you could tell people like you're on medication. If you're not drinking and you're a woman, people automatically assume you're pregnant. It's like, maybe I'm just not drinking, bro. Maybe I'm just chilling tonight. Like, why does it have to be this big thing? That is something that you have to deal with at times. But fortunately, there are people out there who can just support you and not need to know, who are curious in ways they can support you and will ask how they can support you versus trying to make you feel bad. But regardless, that is a social change that will come about when you get sober. You also might lose some friendships because then you start to realize this is kind of only based on drinking and I don't drink anymore. So now you don't want to be around me. All right, well, then I guess I'll see you around. Because you really realize how much socializing these days revolves around drinking. Oh my God. So when I'm first getting sober, COVID, whew, y'all was out there acting up, drinking. Not all y'all, but there were some of y'all out there. But I'm seeing the awareness heightens. So I see people who are like drinking a lot. I remember my cousin, she making these cute ass drinks. Beginning of the pandemic is when everyone's getting really creative. But I noticed you making these cute ass drinks a little bit too much. So I'm like, hey cousin, you good? I noticed you're drinking and I just want to check in. And she was like, no, like, thank you. Like, it's not that at all. I appreciate that, but it's not that. And I believe that. Like, my cousin's not alcoholic. But I said, oh, hey, a red flag. Cause I'm in the trenches of sobriety and I see something, so I'm gonna say something because I care about you. I also had people coming to me for support and for questions. So you get to kind of see both sides of it, which is really great. I still have people coming to me. Every year on the 23rd, I post my sobriety day or about my sobriety because that's my sobriety day, and the response is really great. It honestly motivated me more to start this podcast. This specific topic, I saw how much people needed it, and it's so taboo that people don't talk about it, but it's something that we should talk about. And again, I don't mind talking about it because I put myself in enough shame and enough guilt that no one can shame or make me feel guilty worse than I can. So let's talk about it. I was an alcoholic. I still am. but I'm sober, so you never get to see that side. Speaking of sides, I realized the person that I was when I was drinking was a whole different persona. That addictive brain, his name is Lorenzo. He's named after one of the biggest triggers in my life. So I was like, that's going to be your name because every time you come up, you are trying to drag me down. It also really helps to personify that because it helps you kind of remove the guilt when these triggers come up, these cravings come up. It's like, damn, why do I have these cravings? I shouldn't be having these cravings. Instead, it's like, oh, Lorenzo, what you doing here? You are not supposed to be here. And now, after 6 years, I've had a lot of different experiences, especially in the first year, and it kind of like tapers down. Renzo was around. He come up for any situation. Oh, you feeling good? Wouldn't it be nice to drink? Is that little quiet voice in the back of your head? I experienced some deaths. I got married, experienced some depressions, grief, a lot of things in the last 6 years. And Lorenzo was like, this would be a great time to just crack that bottle. I think the last craving that I had was like a year ago, and it was so random. My wife is not a drinker. She will partake occasionally, but she don't drink. There was a bottle of like wine or something, and I'm going about my day. I've been around liquor a ton at this point. I've been to parties and functions and clubs, and I'm not even in like a bad headspace at the time. Open the freezer, I see the bottle, and I'll be damned, Lorenzo talk about, you could take a sip, nobody would ever know. And I said, Lorenzo, what you doing here? I didn't know you was still coming around. That is so crazy. And I literally laughed and shut the freezer. And it just passed. Something that really helped me when a craving would come up. I put time in between the craving and if I'm going to drink. So let's say a trigger would come up that I want to drink. I'd be like, okay, we could drink in a few hours. I tell myself that. And then within a few minutes, the craving kind of passes. Put that time in between it, and then you forget about it. That was a big trick that helped me with my sobriety. And it's gotten me 6 years up the road. So I guess it's working. But triggers showed up a lot over these last 6 years. A lot of it I understood was just adjusting routine and the practical day to day things that I was doing. So what that can look like is when you go out, the first thing you do is look at the drink menu. Well, maybe we look at some water. Maybe we don't even look at the menu. Maybe we don't even go out at first cuz you got to baby step your way into it. Today, my routine isn't affected at all cuz I've been practicing it for so long. But when you're starting out, you really got to put things in place that put time or distractions, something in between you and drinking, if sobriety is something that you do want. Adjustments are definitely required when you're trying to get sober. You are also going to experience some mental changes as well. Your mental clarity literally gets better. You are in a fog when you are drinking that much. Your brain has to literally heal and clear out all the alcohol so that you can think clear, so that you can let things in emotionally or have the capacity to deal with things. You may have things surface. I had things surface. But the beautiful thing is you now are in a place where you can make better choices. You have more capacity. You can sit in the discomfort so that you can actually see what it is that you're feeling. I've done a lot of connecting the dots about what this trigger means, how it even came about, how is it playing into other aspects of my life. A lot of shit goes back to childhood, but at least you can understand the root of it so you can do something with it. So your mental health does have an opportunity to get better, but like anything else, you got to put in the work. You also are unlearning and healing that shame of the person that you were when you were drinking. There were a lot of times where I just felt like the worst person ever about things that I did when I was drinking. And these weren't horrendous things, but the shame was so heavy, and that can play into mental health. I would definitely say if you do not have a therapist, You absolutely will need one when you're trying to get sober. With any sort of addiction, there's going to be some sort of root to that addiction, some sort of thing that sparks that addiction, some sort of thing that's feeding that addiction. And that can really only be uncovered by doing the work. Not to say you can't do it alone, but if you don't have the tools to do so, getting a professional to help you through that process is going to be a lot more beneficial than trying to work through it yourself. I would highly recommend. I don't think I could make it through it without a therapist. I also had a therapist who was heavily involved in my sobriety specifically, but you're going to need support. And I would definitely recommend getting a therapist if that's something, sobriety is something that you are interested in doing. Because you're also going to have to do the work on who you are. Other than the mental health and the trigger and the childhood and all the stuff, you're going to have to do some work on your personal identity, who you are without drinking. What does life look like now that you don't have this? How do you navigate a world that is full of drinking? There are little cities that tell you to drink. I went to New Orleans like a year ago and I asked the guy at the restaurant if they had anything non-alcoholic. Anything. That could be water, juice, Red Bull, bitch, something. Just no alcohol. And he looked at me like I was crazy. Like, you're in New Orleans. Everything has alcohol in it. First of all, no, it don't. Second of all, isn't that insane? Because, like, you don't understand people really got addictions out here and you just want to fuel it, like Las Vegas. I've been to both and made it out of both just fine, sober. There are ways to navigate spaces and the world without alcohol. I love life on this side. I have more fun sober than I ever did drunk because I always wound up showing my ass metaphorically when I was drinking. I truly love the fun that I have sober. I have a great time. And I have so much to lose now that I've gained by not drinking that it's not worth the risk. And I can't change this tattoo. So, a couple things they don't tell you about sobriety. You grieve the version of you who used to drink, the fact that they were able to drink and they didn't have to be sober and they didn't have a problem because they were just the person who drank. It's a part of you that's no longer with you, and that's a grief. So that's something that can come up. You tend to miss the ritual of drinking more than the effect. You also get a sugar craving. That was a big one. Like a caffeine and sugar craving. That's why a lot of AA meetings have a lot of coffee, because your brain needs that chemical. And caffeine and sugar are the same type stimulants that is given to your brain when you're drinking. And so I went through a ice cream thing when I was getting sober. I was knocking some ice cream back. That was something that caught me off guard. It seems like when you get sober, alcohol's everywhere. Drinking is everywhere. You become so aware of it. It's just like, was this something that's always been here? Or is this happening now that I'm not drinking? I'm not sure. But your awareness of it, it's like heightened. You recognize all the songs and the movies and the advertisements. We are in an alcoholic ass world, and that'll become apparent when you don't have it anymore. You might feel misunderstood. Not everybody understands the need to stop drinking because maybe they don't have alcoholism and they can't get why you can't just stop, or like why or how it became a problem. Or other side of that coin, you might be talking to an alcoholic who doesn't want to acknowledge the problem or might not even be aware of the problem. And so not everybody's going to understand your choice. And for me personally, I got more confident. I know we tend to drink to mask and get that liquid courage so that we could feel better. And at first, I was in my little shell, but I'm like, damn, I like the person who I am without drinking. And it's not something that has to be like brought out of me. Like, it's just who I am naturally now. And you start to really fall in love with yourself as you get to know yourself more. And finally, So long as you don't pivot addictions to something else, you save a lot of money. I have an app that tracks how much I was drinking, the costs associated with the drinking, and how much time you save. Haven't opened it in a while, but I know at least 2 years ago, the amount of money I saved on not drinking was in the 50,000s. So, not bad. 50,000s in like 2 weeks worth of time back into my life, just not drinking. Like that's incredible. So, for anybody out there who's considering getting sober, here are a couple tips that I would recommend. Journal before and after you drink. Now, I'm not saying whip out a journal in the club or at dinner. That's not what I'm saying. But, like, if you find yourself drinking at random moments, see what it is, explore those reasons, and really just kind of start to unpack it to get to the root of what that could be. Because sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes you have an oral fixation that you need and you can replace it with something else. There was a time where I was vaping. I'm not saying do that, but it definitely helped me not drink. But I had to kick that too. And I'm almost a year sober from that. So explore it. I would try journaling. Try going 30 days without drinking at all. No cheating, no substituting. Try going 30 and seeing how that is for you. Seeing if you have the capacity to do so. See if it's really tough for you to do it, or if it's like, oh, that wasn't hard at all, because that kind of gives you some answers too. Because if you are not an alcoholic, which you don't have to be an alcoholic to be sober, but if you are an alcoholic, going 30 days, you're going to be waiting on day 31 to drink again. And if you aren't, you probably might forget that 30 days is up by the time you're done with the experiment. You can go to AA meetings and hear stories of people who drink and their experience, and just hear the different things about overcoming drinking. You can hear different people in different areas of their sobriety. You hear people who relapse and they're coming back and trying again. You can hear people who have years and years of sobriety. There's a lot of different great stories in AA meetings. So you could always crash one of those and see how that lands for you. Start swapping your bar outings or activities that include drinking with non-drinking activities. If you usually go to the club or like a day party, maybe you go shopping or sitting at the park, but just trying things that don't include drinking. Or if they are regular things that you do where you normally drink, try getting non-alcoholic drinks for the time being instead of having those alcoholic drinks. Just making substitutions to see what life looks like without those normal moments where you would drink. I am a firm believer in a reward system. Give yourself a little treat when you choose to not drink versus drink, or when you hit a new milestone for not drinking. Every year on my sobriety birthday, I've kind of gotten away from like larger rewards because the years are getting larger, so I'm doing 5 year increments. But I get myself a chip, the alcohol sobriety chip that you usually get in AA meetings, because I don't go to AA meetings anymore. Get yourself a little reward. It could be a little sweet treat. It could be, I don't know, some shoes, but reward yourself when you choose sobriety. And also celebrate small wins. If you recognize you haven't thought about alcohol today or that week, or you went out and you got a lemonade instead of a margarita like you normally do, celebrate that. Call it out. Recognize it. Because that's how we rewire our brain and build an awareness around not drinking, and also how we combat any shame or guilt or negative emotion that comes up when we do decide to drink, if we are trying to enter a space where we no longer drink. You got to celebrate, because if you just focus on the negatives, that's just going to drive you right back into drinking. This might be obvious, but remove any alcohol from your home temporarily. If it's not in your environment, it might make it a bit harder for you to indulge. Let people know if they come around, or if you live with someone, hey, I'm not drinking right now. Please don't bring it around me. Please don't bring it over to me. Please don't ask me to indulge in it with you. I'm not partaking in this moment. And then finally, be honest with one safe person. It might be hard to tell people you're really close to, but make sure you have at least one person so you don't have to hold things in yourself and you feel like you have somebody to go through these things with. That could be a sponsor, could be a therapist, could be a family member, could be a friend, whatever works for you, but make sure it's at least one person that you feel safe with sharing everything around your recovery and your drinking with. And then I gotta bust some myths around sobriety. There's a lot of misconceptions around being sober. So let's just break them down real quick. Your life doesn't get boring when you stop drinking. I'll be at the day parties, at the functions, at the house parties, at the gatherings, chilling with my juice, lemonade, mocktail, water, having a great time. You learn to have fun without alcohol, and you learn to have more fun without alcohol. So it's not boring. It isn't about perfection. If you have a slip up, if I slip up today, would I be devastated? Yeah. But would it be a surprise? No, because I'm not perfect. It's about taking it one day at a time, one moment at a time, and continuing to show up for yourself. And if you slip up, get back on that horse and start over. Try again. You do not have to hit rock bottom in order to quit. Everybody's rock bottom looks different. You might think one person's rock bottom is your rock bottom. Some people's rock bottoms are a lot lower. You don't have to get to that point before you decide it's time to quit. You don't have to get a DUI before you decide to quit. I know people with multiple DUIs who are still drinking. Their rock bottom is further than mine. They are living their lives however they see fit. You don't have to get to that point in order to decide to stop drinking. You don't even have to be an alcoholic to be sober. If you decided you don't want to drink, you don't have to drink. I know a lot of people who wanted to stop for weight loss, for mental clarity. They recognize they didn't really need it, and they're just like, I don't want to do this. I want to cut back. You don't have to hit your rock bottom. I'm grateful my rock bottom was not the grave, because unfortunately that is some people's rock bottom. You don't have to play with it. You don't have to get that low just before you decide you have to quit. All you need is the awareness and the desire to get sober, and you could go from there. You don't have to drink every day to be considered an alcoholic. If you hit a limit or a place where you know you should stop drinking and you push past that, that's not regular, babe. You're probably an alcoholic. If you turn into a completely new person whenever you drink, even if you don't drink every day, that's not regular, babe. You're probably an alcoholic. So please don't think you may not be an alcoholic just because you don't drink every day. Examine all the things that were discussed today. If you even have a slight consideration that you might be, couldn't hurt but to check it out. Because like I said, alcoholism is a disease. And if you found out you could potentially have cancer, wouldn't you want to know sooner than later before it gets worse? Same thing. And finally, sobriety is not linear, and one slip does not erase progress. If I were to drink today, that does not undo the fact that I just went almost 6 years sober. I still did it. That's still longer than any other time that I did. And like I said, you can get back on that horse at any moment. This is not my first attempt of getting sober. This is the third try. Before I only did like 30 days, 50 days, 60 days. Now I'm thousands of days later. It's not linear. It's going to look different. Some days are going to be harder than others. Some days you're going to be full of triggers. Other days you're not going to even think about drinking. That's why it's a decision. That's why you have to decide to show up and be sober every day if sobriety is a lifestyle that you want. And so I would just like to say, no matter where you are, no matter how much you're considering doing it, if you think you can do it or not, you absolutely can do it. You can do anything that you put your mind to, especially sobriety. Don't let the society have you thinking that you can't function or be a regular person in a world that is full of alcohol if you don't partake. The world is also full of drugs. You don't see me shooting up over here. Find the support, find the resources, and get through it. They have apps, they have books, they have resource groups. There are specific modes of therapy that can help you through it. So many different resources that can get you to where you need to be if sobriety is something that you want. And I would love to hear anyone who is starting their sobriety journey or considering starting their sobriety journey. There's so many people who have come to me over the years who've told me they've considered stopping to drink, who have stopped drinking because of me. And I absolutely love it because I know what life is like on the other side of sobriety. And I would choose it again every single day for the rest of my life. And I do. I choose being sober. And I believe in you. Just keep showing up for yourself and choosing yourself every single day. If you are struggling, if you are having a hard time right now, if you don't think you could do it, take it from me. I never, ever, ever thought I would be 1 year sober, let alone 6. And so if I can do it, you can absolutely do it. And if you want to talk about it, if you need support, if you need guidance, I am here. I would love to talk to anyone out there who needs a listening ear, who just wants to tell their story. If nobody else in your circle will support you or hear you out, you can always come here. I love to hear it, and I believe in you. And you can do this. We're doing it together. Just remember, you are allowed to rewrite your story at any moment that you choose. So you go for it. Okay, you know what time it is. It is time for I Say This With Love. And if you're new here, I Say This With Love is a segment where I give advice to people who write in and ask for advice. Reminder, if you would like to have your submission read on I Say This With Love, you would go to tinyurl.com/AIGP advice and submit your information into the form. Again, it is 100% anonymous. Please do not share any identifiers that will make it easy to discover who you are. Okay, I really don't need advice. I just need you to affirm something that I already know. Is it normal for your partner to flip their phone over every time you walk into a room or anytime I'm in proximity to his phone, like at a restaurant or on the couch? Like, is that something to be worried about or is that regular to you? I say this with love, babe. You know the answer to that. I don't even know why you wrote in and asked. If you know what you think, or maybe you don't even know, but you know you got a negative feeling about him doing that, come on. If it makes you uncomfortable, even if there isn't something foul at play, he's obviously hiding something. And I would address it. And if this person decides to play dumb, there's your answer. Well, that is all for today's episode of Alive, I Guess podcast. I have been looking forward to doing this particular episode ever since I even imagined doing the podcast. I'm really excited to share this story with you all because I've never told my story in full. As a reminder, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Alive, I Guess podcast for inquiries, feedback, or if you just have a story you would like to share, you can email us at aliveiguesspodcast@gmail.com. Again, for I Say This With Love submissions, you would visit tinyurl.com/AIGP advice and submit your submissions there. Ways to support the podcast: you can like, share, subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe and follow anywhere that you listen to the podcast. Share this with people who can resonate with the podcast and just getting the word out there. We are only 5 episodes in and we are at the top of the year. I've got big goals for this platform for 2026, and that can only happen if people are watching. And now that we are in the new year, I'm super excited. I'm finally going to be starting those Patreon exclusive episodes for the homies. And you know the deal by now. It's only $7. That's less than a little $5 footlong at Subway, because you know they got taxes and it's not really $5 no more. I don't believe that. And you gonna get the cookie and you gonna get the drink. So, and you probably gonna do chips, especially if it's like a chicken or a turkey one, the chicken bacon ranch. If you know, got to get the jalapeno chip. That's gonna run you about 10, 11, 12, 15, 20. I don't know. I haven't been to Subway in years, but it's gonna cost you a lot. And for only $7, you could have extra bonus content of me and the Alive I Guess podcast for the month. Look, I don't know about you, but that's how I want to spend my month. Getting more of this, more of topics. I'm about to start going live. I'm about to start doing Q&As. It's about to get real, like, hands-on with y'all. So if you are interested, join that Patreon. Only $7 a month. But thank you so much for joining me today. There's so much we have to do and discuss and uncover. And I just can't wait to go on this journey with you guys now that we are in this new year, because it's only up from here. And as always, I'm RJ. This is the Alive I Guess podcast. And I'll see y'all same time next week. I'm alive.